Well, folks, we know that Arkansas and Auburn will be facing off against each other this weekend, so I'm going to tell you why exactly I hate the Auburn Tigers on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday afternoon starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday as we are getting closer and closer, of course, to game day, which is kind of a weird thing, this game between Arkansas and Auburn. Sam Pittman had a chance to talk about a few of the things going on there, which we'll get to. But it's a weird one because it has its moments. It has its good times and bad. Been a lot more bad than good here recently. But Sam Pittman had some things to say about Hugh Freeze and about the matchup against Auburn, which we'll get into here in just a little bit. But I wanted to bring this back. I don't know if anyone remembers it because I can't remember if I did it with Locked On or if I did it with my radio show before. But I love when SEC play starts up for many reasons, because SEC play, you get the highest quality college football. You get the biggest understanding of who you're going up against and why you're going up against and everything. And I think that it's always fun as a Razorback fan to give reasons why you hate certain teams, especially teams that you're familiar with, that you've played often. I know the divisions don't exist anymore in the SEC, but whenever you're going up against former SEC West opponents in the SEC now, there's still so much history between. And so, with that being said, since Arkansas fans really always have had reasons to hate particular teams and particular schools, I want to bring the series back where each and every game week that Arkansas is facing off against an SEC opponent, I'm going to explain why I hate that team. Now, there's teams that I hate more than others. There's teams that you hate more than others. And you're probably going to be listening to this, or at least you read the title and be like, this idiot over here, he's just being a jerk. He's talking that trash. I don't care, because I hate everyone. I hate all the teams. I hate all the teams in the SEC. If you don't believe me, you should listen to some of our SEC previews that we do with Locked On. I literally hate everybody. So, that being said, it only makes sense to talk about the reasons why I hate the Auburn Tigers. Now, we're talking about just football strictly. So, there's plenty of other reasons for other sports. But strictly talking about football, one of the reasons I hate Auburn is because some of the most egregious calls that Arkansas has had go against them and officiating-wise has always seemed to come against the Auburn Tigers. Now, Arkansas has gotten screwed in many games. The officials have always had it out for Arkansas. We all know that. But some of the games of note and some of the moments of note against Auburn have always stood out. Most recently, and obviously most egregiously, has been back in 2020 when Arkansas literally won the game. They won the game. They beat Auburn. They had Bo Nix, who decided to spike the ball backwards, which is a fumble, and it was recovered by Arkansas. It was 100% recovered. It was the second to last play of the game before Auburn was going to kick a field goal to win it, and it was a fumble. And Joe Fouché, if I'm not mistaken, was the one that jumped on it. But when they went to review it, because everybody was talking, I was like, yeah, that's a fumble. That is a fumble. But when they went to review it, the officials came back and were like, there wasn't a clear, immediate recovery. So therefore, we're just going to let the call stand. It was the wrong call. It was an egregious call, and it ended up costing Arkansas the game against Auburn. They should have won that game. I still believe they won that game. Everyone that whole year talked about how that was a game that Arkansas won. But it wasn't given to them because, again, officials are terrible usually when they go against Arkansas, and it was the wrong call. No accountability, just a big apology saying, sorry, we got it wrong, but it didn't matter. But between that, I remember some of the calls in 2010 when Arkansas went up over to Auburn to face Cam Newton. Arkansas lost the game by 20 so odd points, but I remember there was a lot of key moments in that game where they said there was a fumble that I forgot which player it was. It wasn't Dyer. It was the other running back. Was it McCaleb? Was that his name? Either way, that he clearly fumbled before he reached the end zone, and they reviewed it and it showed it, and it didn't matter. Or they replayed it and they showed it, didn't matter because they're like, well, no, it's a touchdown. It's a horrible call, but it stood. Ended up being costly there. There's some other games, other plays in that, but that's one of the first things I always think about is Auburn gets protected. There's not a luckier team in the SEC and in football than Auburn. I don't care what anybody says. The fact that in 1 year, back in Gus Malzahn's first year in 2013, where you had back-to-back weeks of the Jordan Hare miracle where it's on 4th down and the craziest play against Georgia happens where it pops in the dude's hand in the last second and they go all that way down the field and score a touchdown, and of course the kick 6 later. Auburn shows and proves each and every time that they're one of the luckiest teams in the SEC. So I hate them for that. I hate them for that because they've done nothing to deserve that luck. In fact, if anything, they've done a lot more that they shouldn't deserve that type of luck. So I hate them because of that. I hate them because of the Gus Malzahn angle, because Gus Malzahn was there for way too long, and there's things that Gus Malzahn's done that I don't really appreciate. And of course, him being an Arkansas guy, you're always going to have a little bit of envy because he could have been your coach, should have been your coach, but cooler heads did not prevail, and ended up just kicking the crap out of you most of the years and most of the games. And that was something that was pretty frustrating. In fact, if you look at while Gus Malzahn was at Auburn, the only time Arkansas ever beat him was in 2015, which of course they did beat him in 2020. But still, most of the time, Auburn beat Arkansas 51-10, beat them 34-3, beat them 52-20, 56-3, 45-21, 35-17. Just really handed it to them. And Malzahn was the coach for the majority of those wins, and that's what was so frustrating is seeing a former coach of yours and somebody who coached at your place having all that success. So I hate them for that. I also hate the fact that the fan base thinks they're so entitled to things. I've never seen a fan base that is more cutthroat when it comes to their football coaches. Now, I'm not saying Brian Harsin was a great coach or even a great fit. You shouldn't have hired him in the first place. But they do not tolerate lack of success at all. Which, you say that in general, and you're like, okay, well, that's a good thing, right? Well, it is, but you also, if you do live in a false reality, they would have fired Gus Malzahn about 3 different times. But what saved his bacon, no pun intended, is the fact that he was able to beat Alabama at the end of the year. He would save his job every single time. And it was so dumb to me because I'm like, okay, you can't sit there and tell me that the one game against Alabama is what saves his job. You either fire him or you don't, but they didn't care. But they wanted him gone for a long time. They were so entitled. They felt like they were better, and they feel like they're on the same playing field as Alabama or Georgia or LSU or any of those teams, and they're not. And so it's been frustrating just watching from afar how their fan base handles things. And how they just are so, feel like they're above and beyond. I feel like they did things that started really nasty rumors about Brian Harsin. I felt like that was uncalled for. It's one thing if you want him off the field because of his coaching ability, but it's another thing if you want him off the field because of other things you're spreading rumors on to try to get him fired for cause. I think that was pretty disgusting. You hired Hugh Freeze. There it is. That's one of the other reasons why I don't like it, because I don't like Hugh Freeze. But also, Arkansas did a really good job overall against Auburn. Right now, Auburn owns the series 20-12, a lot of it because of Malzahn and the success that he had. But I hated Cam Newton. I wasn't a fan of Cam Newton. I respected him as a player, but also during the time, everyone knew that he was that he had cheated. Like, he literally got bought, which is legal now, but at the time it wasn't. And it just, nothing happened. Like, it was proven for a fact that he and his dad or whoever asked for $180,000 to go to Mississippi State. But I guess everybody in the NCAA was like, well, yeah, they offered that, but he said no to them and went to Auburn for free. Didn't happen. So I hated the fact that Auburn was always about that. Also hated the fact that some people today, still to this day, think that the best running back duo was Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams at Auburn. It's a falsehood. It's not even close whatsoever. Really good running backs, but nowhere close to, of course, Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, and even throwing in Peyton Hillis there either. So obnoxious fans. They got a trailer park next to their stadium. Yeah. I also don't like teams that have a chant That has nothing to do with your mascot. When you do War Eagle, but your mascot's a tiger, figure it out, man. So there you have it. There's reasons why I hate Auburn. And I'm sure Auburn fans will take this extremely seriously and be seriously offended by it. And that's fine. It's all in fun. It's all in good jest and all that good stuff. But yeah, I hate Auburn. And I hope you lose this weekend. There you have it. We'll talk about some of the things that Sam Pittman said about Auburn, though. He didn't say he hated them, but he did talk about them, as well as Hugh Freeze here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have a little something different for you. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. We are also, of course, brought to you by the Game Time app. You've heard me talk about the Game Time app, and I'm telling you right now, as I pop my neck, Game Time app is where you need to go whenever it comes to your ticket buying. A lot of you want to go to Razorback games. Maybe you're trying to go to the Auburn-Arkansas game this weekend and traveling to Auburn, but you don't know where to go for tickets. Well, get it with the best Game Time app ticket setup ever could exist, because every time you go here, you can not only get the best deals, but you get some best features too, like the all-in pricing. You can toggle a feature right there up front where you get the total up front. So that way you don't go through a bunch of steps and seeing, hey, these prices are pretty good, but then at the end of it, there's a lot of hidden fees. You're like, oh, crap, what in the world? Where'd all that come from? No surprise fees. You can do the all-in feature. You just turn it on. They also have seat views where you can see a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. So you don't want to be making sure you're buying in the nosebleeds. Well, what does it look like? Or you're buying behind a post. What does that look like? You don't have to worry about it there when you're able to see your ticket straight up. They also have the lowest price guarantee. And the guarantee is, of course, that if you find tickets that are cheaper than what they're offering, they're going to credit you with 110% of the difference. So just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Sam Pittman. Of course, we know Sam Pittman, head coach of Arkansas, is looking to take on Auburn in what is a crucial matchup for him and for a lot of people involved, needless to say. So, big game for him. And we know that he has had some interesting history with the Auburn Tigers. Of course, we mentioned 2020 should have won the game, but didn't. 2021 was a weird game at 11 a.m. in Arkansas where, Arkansas lost 4 games that year to Bama, to Georgia. No shame in that. Ole Miss on the road, barely. No shame in that because Ole Miss was really good. But then at home, they lost to a 6-6 Auburn team. And that was one of their worst performances of the year. Really frustrating. And then in 2022, you went on the road and you beat Auburn and basically put the nail in the coffin for Brian Harsin. Didn't really mean as much. But then last year, you just got destroyed at home. And it was towards the end of the year. All needed to go by the wayside anyways. But Sam Pittman met with the media earlier this week and did discuss not only a little bit about Arkansas playing Auburn, but also about Hugh Freeze. We'll start with Auburn and what he makes of them, as well as a scout report that he has for them coming up this weekend.
Well, we've decided to start SEC play. Auburn has a really good team, very physical on the offensive line. Obviously, Hunter is a great running back. Their quarterback they brought in, Brown, had an exceptional game, 4 touchdowns, and can really sling the ball. They protected him well. They've got good wideouts, tight end, the transfer kid from FIU, and they have extra, but Coach Freeze always uses tight ends well, very physical guys. Fairweather really can run routes and catch, good player. They're really good offensively. Defensively, a little different than what the coach was at A&M. lot of odd, 3 down, a lot of blitzing. Over half the snaps are that way. They're using their line McLeod, their Jack linebacker really well. He makes a lot of plays. I like Falk Kid, the defensive end, 15. Already has 3 sacks on the year. Long, good player, great corner in Scott and safety and nickel and Smith. Run to the ball, look like an SEC team. On special teams, one of the best special teams coaches, Tanner Burns, is, obviously you guys know he was here, but he's a great coach, great person. And they're punting, kicking it well. Their kicker's 2 out of 3, but he missed a 61-yarder they attempted, so he's got a great leg and 2 really good. Scott's he's a punt returner as well, really good, and then their kickoff returner is exceptional too. I think he's had a 40-something yard return this year as well. So they're a really good team. The freshman quarterback or redshirt freshman quarterback played really well last week. I think they want to run the football. They should. Hunter's a really good running back, and their line's big and physical.
So that was Sam Pittman on the Auburn Tigers. And yeah, you mentioned Jarquez Hunter, because Jaquindon Jackson, first off, has been great for Arkansas. I mean, he's got 397 rushing yards. He's averaging 8.4 yards a carry, and he has 6 touchdowns. So Jaquindon Jackson's doing a phenomenal job. But right behind him, really, Jarquez Hunter, he's averaging 7.6 yards a carry. Has 273 yards. So he's really good at it. They're trying to figure out their quarterback position. Looks like Hank Brown is probably going to be the guy getting the nod, because at least this year, he's got, it's kind of crazy. He's got 6 touchdowns, no picks. He's completed 20 of 30 for 331 yards, but he hasn't really gone up against the major competition. Peyton Thorne was the one that was the starter at the beginning of the year, and it looks like they're going to be moving differently on from him. Now, here's some of the stats, though, I wanted to bring up, because we'll talk about Hugh Freeze here in just a second. But here's some of the stats that I thought was pretty fascinating as far as Arkansas versus Auburn and where they rank. Especially, I was a little surprised, honestly, to see that Arkansas is number 1 in the country in third down conversions. They're converting 67.5% of the third down conversions. So that's pretty incredible. So Arkansas is great in that, and first downs. Arkansas is number 2 in the country in first downs. So if you're looking at some of the highest stat deals that they're at, it's that rushing offense. Arkansas is 11th in the country, 3rd in the SEC, 3rd in the SEC in rushing defense. So Arkansas runs the ball really effectively, and they stop the run pretty effectively. And also, I thought this was interesting. That passing offense Arkansas is right there at 3rd in the country, 12th, or 3rd in the SEC, 12th in the country. So you're talking about rush offense and rush defense. Sorry, rush offense, passing offense. Right there, you're right there in the mix, being number 3 in the SEC, but also a top 15 setup there too. Arkansas's pass defense, which again, I feel like the defense is so much better than what it's shown, or at least it's what the stats are saying. But I guess, hey, numbers never lie. Arkansas is 9th in the SEC in total defense, which is 39th in the country. So that's not too bad. But pass defense, Arkansas is 14th in the SEC, which is almost close to being last. Doesn't seem like it, but it is the truth. But we also got to take into consideration that Arkansas, just like a lot of other SEC teams, haven't exactly played the most. But turnover margin is something that both teams are terrible at. Arkansas is 14th in the SEC, 98th overall at minus 0.67 turnovers a game. How about this? Auburn's 16th in the SEC, which is dead last, and they're also dead last in the country at 131 in turnover margin. But the things that Auburn does do really well is, surprisingly, in a weird way, they're really good at kickoff return average. They're 9th in the country in that. Net punting, they're really good. They have a phenomenal punter, is what Sam Pittman was talking about with special teams. They're 3rd in the SEC, but 4th in the country in net punting average. But passing efficiency, they are 9th in the country in that, 4th in the SEC. They're pretty solid at their red zone defense. They're 14th in the country there. So, these are just things to kind of look at when this matchup comes around. But their time of possession's awful. They're dead last, almost dead last in the country in that. Their pass defense is not good at all, which, in fact, passing defense, that was another thing I meant to bring up. Pass defense, Arkansas, we mentioned him, but they're 14th in the SEC. Pass defense, Auburn is 16th. 16th in the SEC, dead last, and 99th overall. Arkansas should be able to pass at will on this team because Auburn's defense is not good. Statistically speaking, Auburn's defense is not good. So that's where the numbers are at for them. So Hugh Freeze being a coach there, I know Hugh Freeze has done some good things here and there, but I don't know. He's just not somebody that it feels differently with him at Auburn. It feels like he just doesn't have the same gusto, doesn't have the same fire behind it that maybe did at Ole Miss. It feels kind of lethargic. And this is a big game for both teams, and I have no idea what to expect. I know we'll talk about it and we'll break it down more, but man, I could see anything happening in these types of games. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll talk about one particular player, though, with Arkansas, and that's Taylon Green. Very important for him, but we'll talk about that and a lot more coming up. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans, have you heard about ROY? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As all you know, NIL has changed the game for athletes, and ROY changes the NIL game for all the fans. And it's exclusive content access. When fans contribute to a successful campaign, they receive access to exclusive content from the athlete, such as their announcement decision, behind-the-scenes footage, and other personal reflections, all of which are available only to the fans that supported the athlete. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes the decision that aligns with the fan support. If they don't, the money is returned to the fan, so there's no risk in that. You can also engage with the athletes on their NIL journey by using ROY because fans not only support athletes financially, but also become a part of their name, image, and likeness journey, helping them succeed in both on and off the field. So you can download ROY for iOS or Android and enter in referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into the sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Just visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. It's the ROY app, again, on the iOS or Android. You can start making a huge impact on your favorite players for your favorite team. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with ROY. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, dealing with Taylon Green. All right, I love Taylon Green. Taylon Green's been awesome, and I know he struggled last week against Auburn against UAB. Hopefully, he doesn't struggle against Auburn, but just looking at his numbers so far this year, Taylon Green has completed 53 passes for 94 attempts. So just hovering a little above 50%. But he has 806 total yards passing. But here's the thing. 3 touchdowns. 3 passing touchdowns. It's crazy. He's got 2 interceptions. Now, he also has 245 yards rushing with 4 touchdowns, which is awesome. He averages 6 yards a carry there. But it's crazy to think about he's thrown 806 yards and only has 3 touchdowns. Because if you want to put that into perspective, that's about the same amount. This is crazy. That's about the same amount of passing yards that Peyton Thorne and Hank Brown have combined. And between the two of them, they have 11 touchdown passes. Taylon Green's got 3. So granted, Peyton Thorne has run a little bit, but I don't think he's as good a runner as Taylon Green. And Taylon Green's able to do so much when it comes to your type of quarterback that's able to get out of the pocket, able to create space, able to make some passes, and he's capable of it. The accuracy has been a problem. It's always been a problem, but you can live a little bit with the inaccuracies if he's able to make up for it with his legs, which a lot of times he does. But this is a huge test for him. This is a huge game for him because going on the road in the SEC is a whole new animal. I know he went on the road against Oklahoma State, but that atmosphere is going to be a little bit differently than what we're going to see this weekend. So how does Taylon Green handle it? Well, to me, Taylon Green, and Sam Pittman even talked about this in his press conference, but he's talking about running the ball more effectively. And that's going to be the best friend for Taylon Green. If Arkansas is just able to feed Jaquindon Jackson or Rodney Hill or whoever the running back is and they have some success in it, then that's just going to open up Taylon Green to not only do the same thing with his legs, but also open up the passing game. I've been pleasantly pleased. I don't know if that's the way you put it, but I'm going to say it. I've been pleased, honestly, with the ability that Arkansas has had in, protecting maybe better than I thought. Because even though if you look at the numbers in Arkansas is averaging, you're giving up 2 sacks a game, which that's 9th in the SEC and 82nd overall, you're like, oh, that's not very good. But a lot of that, I'm just going to be honest, a lot of those sacks, or a few of those sacks have been kind of on Taylon Green for not getting rid of the ball, for trying to make a play, for trying to run outside when it wasn't there. I'm not blaming all the offensive line, but I think they've done a fairly good job of protecting Taylon Green, and I think they'll do a fairly good job protecting Taylon Green in this game. The matter is just going to be about the decision-making that Taylon Green has. And, Arkansas has done a great job with third down conversions. You got to keep him in a position to where it's not third and longs. The more you are able to just keep the defense honest, where not getting in those obvious passing situations to where they're going to drop everybody back and keep a QB spy on Taylon because of that fact, you got to be able to just keep in a position to where it's the defense is still on their toes. To me, that's going to be the best way that Arkansas can be effective here. If you get a third down but it's 3rd and 2, everyone's like, man, they could easily run it. They could easily run it with Taylon. They could have Jackson, or they could do a quick pass, quick flat. I mean, the options are there. So I feel like that's going to be the best thing for Taylon Green, is just to have the options open. But the offense has to be able to put themselves in a position to where they don't end up harming themselves and putting themselves behind the 8 ball and making it obvious of what they're trying to do. Because whenever Taylon Green is in the obvious passing downs and he is obviously going to pass, to me, that's usually been when it's been the biggest problem for Taylon. But it's going to be a great game no matter what. Can't wait to see what happens. Appreciate everybody listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.